This church was built in the year 1868. The name is taken from the availability of the white rocks in the earth in the area, and there are a couple of them on the property. This church started as a gathering of people to worship who were former slaves in Georgia. And I don't know whether it's an accurate story or not, but the story that's in the history is that they followed General Sherman back and established a worship in a place called the Hen Coop on Obrecht Road, which is a few miles from here. Later, being organized as a church, they then bought this property. I don't know what years the group worshiped in the Hen Coop, but in 1868, the property here. Now, that was begun with a family of those who are Costleys, Nugents, Dorseys, Austins, and other names like that. And yes, we still have people from those families who are members of this church. I was very surprised to find that we still have people from the families who live in the area as well as go to church here. And that is quite surprising because of the way that our communities have experienced mobility in these later years. I am a native of the area and have family members in the church, been a part of White Rock Church over the years, because in reunions and homecomings and whatnot over the years I've participated here. And one of the sister churches, as I say, Mount Gregory Church is my home church. My mother's people are in the cemetery out here. And so I'm well acquainted, and I had retired, and that's why I was called. They asked me, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I finally decided I'm not doing anything else." And they asked me to consider being the pastor here. That's how I ended up here.
My name is Gary Hudson. I remember White Rock Church. I'm one of the trustees. My grandmother and grandfather came to this church. I remember my father and mother came to this church. And I recall when we was kids, my mother and them would get together and we would walk to church every Sunday morning. Come to Sunday school, then sometime we wouldn't get home till 7 o'clock at night.
If you notice, the cemetery is right out alongside these walls, and all of our families are buried there. It used to be nothing but growth out there. And the Boy Scouts back then, when we were Boy Scouts, along with some of the parents, we got together and redid the cemetery and replanted it back in grass, and it's been kept like it is right now. I guess this goes back 40 years, I guess.
We came like when we was about 5 or 6 years old, because my grandfather was the choir director here. And my mom, she and then my mom's sister, and then they all came to this church. And my uncle, Rob Gasaway, and we was all here at church when we was, I think, like 5 or 6, sitting on the front row.
My sisters and brothers were born in Baltimore, and that's where they were raised, in Baltimore. So, but I was out here in the country, so I had no experience with them because my grandmother took me at 2 months old, and that's where I was at until I got old enough to leave home.
I was born and raised in Carroll County. I was born on what is now Shepherd's Lane, which is 1 mile from this church. I grew up in this church. My mother brought me here the first time. I guess I was still in her womb. White Rock Road was a dirt road, county road. This whole area was farmland. The major industry in Carroll County when I grew up was agriculture. The Shepherd family house on Shepherd's Lane was the closest house to the school where black folks live. They would come to my house. In the wintertime, they'd come in and get warm. In the summertime, they'd go to the well and get a drink of water. We'd all walk to White Rock School together. My house was 1 mile from the school. was a one-room school, grades 1 through 7. I went to high school, to Robert Moulton High School. Robert Moulton High School, as I look back, had many things, deficiencies, but at the time it was the biggest, the best thing that I'd ever been a part of.
We both worked at the canning factory in Woodbine, tomato factory. Then we worked at apple butter factory in Sykesville, and then I also babysit for a private family when we was like 14. And well, we mostly did the same thing because the father, he worked on a farm in between when he got injured when we was like 7 years old, and he was working for the B&O Railroad, and he got both his legs cut off when we were, and so we had to survive the best we could. So then he went to work for this family in Woodbine, and he worked there until he retired. So he wasn't able to work, but he worked there with both his legs off. He drove like the tractor and stuff. Yes.
Our grandparents worked on the railroad, but our immediate parents, they worked for the state government, either Henderson Hospital and Springfield Hospital.
And your mom?
She did days work for the white families here in Sykesville. She'd get up early in the morning, get us together for school, and then she'd go off and clean their houses, prepare their food, come back in the afternoon and do the same thing in our house, and help us with our homework, put us to bed, and start all over the next day.
Yeah, my father, he worked at the hospital in Hamilton, and my mother did day work like on the farm, but like Billy was saying, you just come back home, do the same, start all over again, do the same thing every day, so.
The Gazaway, my mom was a Gazaway, which was Robert Gazaway's father's sister. And the Rubottoms and Costleys, it's just a lot of family. And some of the Hudsons are too, so it's all family. Family.
The very first structure built here was converted into a school. And this particular building was built later. The school itself was a log building, and it was later sold to one of the members of the Board of Trustees, Mr. Fillmore Dorsey. And the agreement was that as he used it, it also had to be the overnight facility for the housing of the pastor who came out from Ricerstown once a month. But community meetings and things were held both in the old log cabin and in the church structure that we had later on.
If you walked out of this building and walked down the road to the corner, there's a little, I think it's a house there now, was a one-room schoolhouse. The Board of Education rented that for a one-room school for White Rock School. Upstairs, the lodge had their meetings, but they owned that building right down as you go down the hill here from the school on the left-hand side. And that's where I went to finish this through the 7th grade.
Before we add on to the new part, we had a, we call it community building, set aside the church. It was an old, they said, I think, old army building. My father and a couple other people, they put it together. And we used that for our community hall. So we did fine back then. We had, parking lot was dirty, was dirt, and the women kind of got a little mad because the high heels would go down the side of the what's the name. So we finally got together when we finally got a men's course, and we raised a little money. We blacktopped the parking lot, and then we had a new part onto the church and all.
The pastors that first began serving here all came from what was called the Reisterstown Circuit. The Reisterstown Circuit were pastors who had a particular responsibility to serve certain churches in this area. And the earliest that's been recorded is a Reverend Tasco. There are others who followed him. Now, also during that time, that pastor was responsible for only one service a month. And at that time, people who later have gone to 4 different churches in the area were gathering here at White Rock.
If it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, let Israel now say,
if it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, when our enemies attacked us,
then they would have swallowed us up alive when their anger was kindled against us.
then the flood would have swept us away, the torrent would have gone over us.
Then over us would have gone the raging waters.
Blessed be the Lord, who has not given us as prey to their teeth.
We have escaped like a bird from the snare of the fowlers. The snare is broken, and we have escaped.
Worship services were generally conducted so that there was the usual prayer and singing and sermon.
Help us then now, dear God, as we come for a brief time of praise here while we're in the flesh, to do those things that are pleasing in your sight. We thank you for the night that has passed. We ask, dear God, that you would relieve any afflictions that have befallen us unawares during the night. We thank you for keeping God around us.
Are any among you suffering? They should pray. Are any cheerful? They should sing songs of praise. Are any among you sick? They should call for the elders of the church and have them pray over them, anointing them with oil in the name of the Lord. The prayer of faith will save the sick, and the Lord will raise them up, and anyone who has committed sins will be forgiven.
But also there was the part about reports on the community and witnessing, which is part of the reports on the community and how well people are doing and whatnot. Those activities are recorded as parts of the activity of the church.
We'd come to church here on Sundays and spend all day worshiping, and when we weren't worshiping, we were fellowshipping because we used to have picnics here and would take all day long enjoying everybody's company. So it was an experience here in Carroll County that I don't think you'll find in a lot of places.
You come all day, and everything went along fine. But like Billy was saying about the picnics we had, you'll never find that again.
In the old days, I recall that we used to have all-day meetings and eatings on the ground. Well, we eat inside here, but we are back to doing all-day meetings at least once a month during the summertime. And in the wintertime, we may have to cancel them. But we are sure to have Sunday afternoon services at least the second Sunday of every month. We're committed to that. And that's encouraging to me because there are so many ways in which the church has moved away from acknowledging Sunday as a special day for the church in and of itself, let alone the community recognizing it. But people here have committed themselves to seeing the whole day through as a day of worship, and I'm so pleased with that. Did you have Sunday school here?
Every Sunday.
Yeah, every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Yes.
You had
And
to
we
come.
had
You had to come every Sunday.
That's right. And we had a principal, particularly in the summertime, who taught summer school, and very strict. Yes, you came to Sunday school.
Well, the only thing I remember that my uncle used to bring the people from Springfield and play in the band when they had the family picnic out here. And we enjoyed it, really. That's something I
We
can
had
remember.
music and
Lots of food.
A lot of people came, and it was just a lot of children there back. Was a lot of these families here. They had big families, which we didn't have mostly outsiders. They were all family because we all was
Large
together.
family.
Just a large family of people.
Church to us was something that was natural. Wasn't any fighting or arguing, are you going to church today or not? You just got up and got yourself together. And as previously stated, well, as you know, he and I are brothers, so it meant we lived in the same house, but we walked at least 4.5 miles every Sunday to come to church. But this church is a very integral part of our lives. Without it, I don't know where we would be.
I think the fact that the members had found that this is a place that nourishes them, and family members have found that they can be reunited as they gather here for occasions and whatnot, is a service that's being done to the community.
We knew what we could do and what we couldn't do as far as our race went. It was interesting because even though we weren't integrated, the friends that we did have, it was just like family.
We lived in a neighborhood where we were the only two black families, and that was it. We had all friends. All our friends were white.
To play with, and we got along just fine.
We got along fine.
Just fine.
We grew up together.
Stayed at each other's house and ate there all the time, and everything. Played, went swimming in the pond.
So we had fun. So we don't, but integrated. We didn't know too much about that because that's how we lived.
My mother, who died when I was about fourth grade, her brother-in-law had gone to school, high school, at Storer College in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. So she had decided that this was before integration, you realize, because all of us who were black children had to walk to school. White children rode school bus. And my mother didn't like that very much, and she decided that I would go to a boarding school for high school rather than ride a school bus and walk to catch it. But she died before I got there. But my father carried it out and decided to send me to public high school. I went to Storer College in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia for my high school. And then I went to Boyer School for teacher training.
Our school years consisted of opening up a history book and you get to page 134 and there's no 135, 6, or 7 because the white children had torn the pages out of the books and they gave the books to us. As far as sports goes, I'm pretty sure they had equipment to play football. I mean, only football we could play was touch. You didn't do no tackling on those rocks that we played on. So those are the kinds of things that we didn't have that the inner schools probably had.
The only sign that I saw was on the comfort station in Westminster that said white women. Now, there were no signs in Sykesville, but it was understood that I would not go to the only restaurant, the Diamond Restaurant.
Yeah. Well,
it was understood that they didn't serve me. It was understood that I couldn't sit at the soda fountain in the drugstore or at the soda fountain at the confectionery store. That was understood, but the only sign I remember seeing in Carroll County was the one in Westminster at the comfort station.
We challenged the Klan here in Carroll County. We got some political people together from Annapolis, the mayors of Westminster and Sykesville, and we met out here in Eldersburg to denounce the Klan activities here in Carroll County. They didn't burn any cross that I know of, but they were shooting up black houses, black-owned houses, right up here in Gamber.
Did that surprise people?
No. Didn't surprise any of us because we knew that, number one, Gamber was not a place for a black family to be, start out with. But however, it did happen, and as a result, the Klans got together and shot up the house. But you would have thought the realtor would have told them, or persuaded them to go some other place, but no.
Guy had Mr. Ed Barnes. I think it was Ed Barnes. He had an ice cream store and a pool room. And like our bus driver would stop in Sykesville in the afternoon to get pick up feed for his livestock. So we'd go in and get an ice cream cone. We'd ask for vanilla and the man would say, "You mean chocolate, don't you?" And that's what they give you. If he was black, he got chocolate ice cream. No, I just said that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. We went along, you know.
Yeah.
Nobody seemed to
that-
put up no fuss about it.
He had a
It was
brother.
understood.
He had a brother up on the other end of town that had a little eat-in place and whatever. You could go in there and he treated you fine. He treated you fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think his name was Ed Barnes.
Yeah, I think it was too. Yeah,
Barnes.
Barnes is, uh-huh.
Yeah.
We sometimes the family would talk about it, but they wouldn't, didn't do nothing to cause any disturbance.
I guess I was probably 14 years old and was working during the summer, so I had my own money. And I went to a restaurant downtown Siceville. And again, no signs to say white, colored, or whatever, but you understood you weren't to be served. And I ordered a hamburger. And whether the waitress was new or what, I don't know, but she asked me did I want to eat it there in the restaurant. Stunned at first, but then I said, okay, let me take her up on it. And I said yes. And the owner came down in front of all the other patrons there who were white and said to the waitress, you know he cannot eat here. So I just left the hamburger at the shop and walked on out.
I never had that problem. You know, it's all, you carry yourself the right way, you ain't gonna have no problem. But although in your mind you think things, but I never had. I just do what I'm supposed to do and get it over with, you know. But as far as having many problems, no, I've never had that.
We used to have a choir. I can't think of what they called us now, but graduations, they would get us to come and sing at their commencements.
Mm-hmm.
So we were good for something.
All right.
People that lived up the road from me called the Obrets, which the road's named after. They was white, and we was pretty good friends. And so I was walking down the street in Siceville, a couple of whites started calling me names, and one of them happened to be standing there too. And he got on them for calling me names, told me, don't do that to them. He's not like be called that. So that's the only time I ever had an instance happen like that. And I appreciated him.
Yeah. You didn't have any reason to fear for your safety because of hostility from white community?
Not really.
Well, again, we knew what we could do and what we couldn't do. So we most times we didn't strand over that line. Mm-hmm. But it was always there. We knew it was always there. Mm-hmm. Particularly when we rode through Gamber, we knew we weren't just to look straight ahead and get out of town. Mm-hmm. But didn't hang around.
All right. How is it different today?
Is there any difference? I mean, you know, we would like to think it's better, but when you listen to these commentators on TV and look at or listen to some of the attitudes that some people have, I really don't think there's very much difference. It's just a different way in which it's coming out.
One of the things that we started is a school on evangelism. And I'm learning a lot from it, and I'm hoping that we all are. And one of the things that we learned in putting that together is to try to discover what vision God has in store for each of us as individual believers. But we settled on one for that. We have not settled on one for the church. We settled on one for the School of Evangelism that I think that if it came to a vote, we may make it for the church, but I'm not ready to do that yet. And that is to love first of all and serve best of all. I don't think it matters very much what particular ministries the church has if it doesn't love people. Not only people that are inside the doors, but others as well. And that really tells us what ministries we ought to be in. And if it's only possible for one person rather than the whole church to be involved in that ministry, then that's what that person ought to be doing. And they don't need to hear me every Sunday morning in order to do that. I was honored to come to White Rock because my wife, formerly the pastor here, So I got to try to do better than she did. So that's a great honor. I got to White Rock because I was called by people from White Rock who had been put on notice by the conference that it might not be possible for them to send a pastor. But I had to wait for the Lord to make it real to me exactly why the Lord wanted me here. And it took time. And I did not move on major things until other things developed. And then we began new ministries and things that we're involved in now. And among those other things has been the separation of the church from the conference. We're no longer affiliated with the United Methodist Church. And that change has allowed us the opportunity to examine why we were doing what we were doing, whether our hearts were really into it, but we were doing it because we were trying to meet some particular standard, and to reinvest ourselves in who it is that we are as a church, because if we're not this, how can we be that unless we know what it is? And so it's been a great opportunity for everything, including the rituals we have, to membership vows, to expectations for ourselves as officers of the church, a reorganization of responsibilities in the church to lessen the number of committees and things. There is a number of people now involved in the School on Evangelism. And by the time we finish that school, which I'm hoping continues even after I'm gone, then leadership of the church will have been through the classes in the school.
The king asked Esther, what's your request? What's your petition? He asked her, and just like the king, the Most High asked us, what is our request? What's our petition? Yeah. Esther, in her heart, she yearned for freedom. Our heart is to be free in Christ. Each and every one of us. Yeah. Yes.
At times, I feel that people are being a little too strung out. And that's an absolute fact. You can overtax it. Church can become too busy. And so when that happens, I may decide that we're not going to do a particular service that we've said we're going to do. But I also find that people who do not engage themselves in the work for the church are engaged in something. So I just give them the opportunity to make a choice. Having this opportunity to grow into something different, I hope it's something better. And I would want us to be a growing church without respect to the numbers, but growing in our commitment to God, to each other, and to our community. And maybe we can redefine what it means for a church to grow, but I think every church is that way. We all want to grow more in the grace of God, fulfill what we think or what we may feel God has called us to do. And one of the ways we're being led as the church these days, we have mega churches. I mean, there are thousands of people with one pastor. I believe the church has to go back to what White Rock started out as, more lay leadership with major responsibilities for the church. And we keep growing that way, we'll be remembered because we'll be out there with people.